Ah, yes. Okay, good. Probably you are the first, Barbara. Probably you are. I'm gonna wait and see whenever anybody joins. Let's see. Yeah, we'll try this again. I don't know. There's supposed to be a counter for how many people are in here, and it is not telling me. Oh, it's saying there are 2, but at least 5 people have commented. So who knows? All right, so we're good to go. Fantastic. Okay, good. Sounds much better this time. Yeah, I gave you all the secrets of Cradle last time. I actually answered all the questions too, so we're actually done. I'm just kidding. Sorry about that, everybody. This is why I am a writer and not a streamer, because I do not know how to fix audio problems. But we tried. We did our best, and that's what matters. So I really hope that I will be clear and that you will be able to hear me. And we're gonna keep it moving. The audio is better now. Yes, here we go. The best streamers are writers, actually. You know, it's funny because I know that there are a lot of people who sometimes stream their writing process, and I have never been. That doesn't. I don't even get that. Like, what do you get out of that? It's so. I don't know why people watch it. That's what I don't understand. I just know how people do it. Yeah, I'm no longer silenced, which means I can cast spells. So that's what I know. That's what you guys are all here for. So here we go. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you for joining us in the new and improved pilot spoiler live stream. And let's get moving. All right. Did you always plan for Omega to decide? I did that. Already. Did you already plan for Omega to redeem himself with the sacrifice? Yeah. Yada, 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 traitor. So I did. Somebody was like, oh no, traitor. It could be anybody. I was like, I'm not telling you that there will be a traitor in the rest of the series. I'm saying that in my part of my initial plan, that was what I was thinking for Omega. The way I do these, by the way, is I do like arcs and storylines for different characters, right? Like, so I'm taking their backstory and their personality, and I'm going, what would be a cool thing for them in the future? So because I changed that doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a traitor later or somebody who switches sides or anything like that. So, but maybe there will, but you never know. All right. The last Horizon series incorporates homages, incorporates homage to many science fiction franchises. What are some of your beloved sci-fi series? Oh boy. So there are a lot. The one I was into the most was Star Wars. I really was just very into Star Wars. That's probably like the most basic answer I could give. But one of the things I remember reading the most growing up was I read the Young Jedi Order series. I read the New Jedi Order series. I read a lot of the stuff that one of my favorite books, like, so when I first started learning to write action scenes, the writer I went to was Matthew Stover, who wrote the novelization for Star Wars Episode 3, and he wrote the Mace Windu book Shatterpoint. And his action scenes were just so very vivid and detailed, and yet so just cool and hyped to read, that when I started learning to write action scenes, I went, I am going to look and see how Matthew Stover does this, and I am going to shamelessly steal. Now, I'm still not as good as he is. He's a lot more stylistic than I am. But it was a really cool thing to integrate into but they all came from the Star Wars. So I've always liked Star Wars. I've always been a big fan of it. One of the things I like the most about Star Wars is you get cool spaceships, you get cool adventures, you get cool planets, you get cool species, and you can kind of do a lot of cool things, but it all feels like Star Wars. So that was a big inspiration for me. There are a lot of, I put a lot of them in the series, so you all know that. But yeah, that was the one that comes to mind the most. Obviously, I have a lot of Power Rangers references in there. I have, I got a ton of stuff. What do I have in there? I have some Warhammer stuff in there, which Warhammer is one of those things that, like, I've read some of the books, but I was never like a big Warhammer guy. So I was like, I'm into it, but I'm not that into it. So it's like, I don't have any armies or anything, but it was, there's a lot of fun stuff I got to do. One of the things I learned reading Star Wars, especially, but also reading a lot of the old sci-fi novels, is that I like soft sci-fi. Hard sci-fi is really fun for what it is. So stuff like, there's a lot of hard sci-fi short stories that made impressions on me. Ray Bradbury's one of those that he wrote a lot of. There was a Ray Bradbury short story collection I read over and over. A lot of like the Twilight Zone. Some of that's fantasy, but some of it's sci-fi, right? The Black Mirror kind of thing, right? So those are the kinds of things that I like in hard sci-fi. I like it when they ask questions and you get a cool response. But I like those as short stories. In terms of universes that I'd like to live in, I don't need you to go into a ton of detail. I don't need it to be scientifically accurate to the physics of our universe. You can have lasers in space that move slower than the speed of light, right? Like, that's fine. I don't care. As long as it's a fun, engaging story and it's a fun, like, world to live in. So because of that, I kind of like when I was a teenager, I started going, "Oh, I'm really into fantasy. I'm not really into sci-fi because when people said I'm into sci-fi, they're into the hard science questions and the left hand of darkness, Ursula Le Guin. What if you could switch biological sexes at will, and then how would that do to your society?" And I was like, "Okay, man, I like Ursula Le Guin. I even enjoyed that book, but that is not what I want necessarily all of my sci-fi series to be." So I started realizing that I was, more of a fantasy guy. That was will surprise no one. But a lot of the original sci-fi stuff was very mixed with fantasy. You could find dragons on other planets. You could find oceans of burning ice, right? So you could do all sorts of cool stuff. And so that was the kind of thing where I was like, yeah, I can put somebody in a Metroid suit. I can, and I, video games are another one that's like, I like Halo. I like Halo as much as anybody. I like the lore of Halo. It's just a lot of fun, right? Like all that stuff. So I got a lot of answers to that question. But anyway, that was kind of my tie-in. Have we met or at least seen on screen the next pilot candidate yet? Have we met or at least seen on screen the next pilot candidate yet?
Tell them a little bit about what we talked about.
Okay, all right. I'll tell you a little bit. All right. So Sam asked me this question the other day, and he wanted to know who the next pilot was going to be, right? And so I talked him through my thought process. And when I realized, so one of the things I knew I wanted to do is I wanted to kill at least one member of the crew just to show that I can kill members of the crew and that they can die. And what happens when you switch seats, right? Like what happens when you switch people. So I knew I wanted to do that. But because of the way I had structured the series, I was like, okay, I have an idea for who I want the next pilot to be, but I don't know if I can get the reader there without in an appropriate amount of time. Because always when you get to a certain point in a series, the reader is kind of where you wanted them to be, but there's always a little subtlety, right? So for instance, you introduced Isla, right? You introduced Isla this book, and it's like, how are people going to respond to Isla? I don't know, and I don't really care exactly how they respond to the character, like if they like the character or not. That's not important. That's not what she's doing in the story. But she is now more important than I had originally realized she was going to be. So now it's like, okay, well now moving forward, I've got to keep in mind that she is more important. Lemon was, of course, just was like, this is just a recurring gag I've wanted to do for a long time, where there's just this random character that seems like they're not important, but then they're actually kind of the main character of another series that's going on off screen. So those are all things that I was like, when you get to actually that point in the series, you start to go, all right, now let me get a feel for it and see if it matches my original plan. So my original plan was to go with a character for the pilot who is a new character who we have seen briefly. It is a new character who we've seen briefly. And then I'm like, yeah, I could do that and I could make it work. But what would happen is I would have to set this person up pretty much entirely in the next book. And I don't know if I have time to do that. So that will make me go to my plan B, which is a different character, one that we know. I can't go any further than that. But yeah, so my plan right now, I mean, I've not outlined the fifth book yet, but so I have certain things I know. I'm actually pretty familiar with what's going to happen in the fifth book, but having not written anything in stone yet, I have a pretty good idea because so one of the things I have now is knowing where we are in the series, I have a good idea for the chemistry of the crew too. And so I have an idea that the pilot candidate has to have a unique chemistry with the rest of the crew. And I had an idea that I liked. And when I was pitching it to Sam, I was like, I don't know if we're going to do A or B or C. And then I was kind of trying out B, and B was really funny. So I liked B. So that's probably what we're going to end up doing. Yeah, B is probably what we're probably going with B. Is Varric still bound to serve the world spirits even after they got cursed with his cursed magic? So I don't know to what degree I'm supposed to go into the details of cursed magic. I also don't remember what I put in the glossary. What did I put in? Did I put anything in the glossary about cursed magic?
I think you just called it Chekhov's cursed magic. No, I don't remember.
Okay, yeah. So I don't remember what I I don't remember what I have told you guys already. So I'm a little bit wary of saying anything. But no, effectively no. He's not bound to serve the world spirits. He's fine. He's not going to be in their thrall. That was actually kind of the point of this. Backfired on them horribly, right? So they did not want that. They were trying to break it, right? They didn't want to. No contract. If you would, can you please rant for us about why alchemy is worse than both magic and chemistry in every way? Absolutely. These alchemists have no idea what they're doing. Chemistry, at the very least, is examining the universe to figure out what makes physics and matter work. And they can tell you what is going to happen. Magic, it involves you have to prove yourself to the aether, right? Like you have to say that I myself, any magic you do is part of you, right? Like, but an alchemist, they just mix stuff. They just do things. It doesn't reflect on them. It doesn't necessarily have a useful outcome. They just kind of go, hey, wonder what happened if I put this pink crystal into this flask. Oh, cool, it exploded. All right, well, too bad. So this is really why I did not have an alchemist in this series and why the alchemists in Elder Empire were villains. This person is seconding the request for at least 5 minutes about why alchemy is the inferior discipline and why you shouldn't trust alchemists. All right. Preferably some good stories about alchemists inadvertently. See, this entire writing career, this is why, by the way, they never went into refining elixirs in Cradle, because I started him soulsmithing, and they were going to learn how he's going to learn soulsmithing, and then he was going to learn refining too. But I realized, refining is just alchemy, but in Cradle, and alchemists are the worst. So we're going to go ahead and cut that. In Elder Empire, the leader of the Alchemist Guild is a villain who is evil. So we got rid of him. I mean, this whole thing is just me ranting against alchemy over and over. So really, that's been my whole career. Infinite Pool says next pilot is just Lyndon. I don't know how you called it, man, but you're in my head. You're reading my mind. Next pilot is Lyndon. That's canon. Yeah, that's definitely going to happen. Hold your breath. It's going to happen for sure. What did you struggle with writing the most in the pilot? What did I struggle? All right. So this person says Petal is a villain. All right. So, don't go too far, right? Like that's so, not all alchemists are monsters. Alchemy is the discipline of monsters, but that doesn't mean some people are just misguided, right? Like she's doing her best. She doesn't have a gift for magic. She hasn't been educated in chemistry. This is the kind of thing that she's like, she's trying to make her way. She's just lost, right? She's a good soul. She's going to get there. She's going to figure it out. What did you struggle with writing the most in the pilot? This is this is one of the few questions that Sam gave me in advance. What do you struggle with writing the most in the pilot? Because I have several very specific answers. So one of them is I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I was writing the pilot while my cousin was going through cancer. So she was struggling and going through many of you know, my 24-year-old cousin died of stage 4 ovarian cancer in April. So I was writing the pilot while she was going through that. And of course, there's not much I can do to help. I mean, it's cancer. But my family is really, especially my brother, really there to support her and really try to support the family any way they could. And so what I was doing was basically trying to do my job in a hotel room next to the hospital so that then they could they didn't have to help me. They could go help their family. But that was difficult. That was really tough for the whole family. Of course, it's hard to stay focused in those circumstances. And one of the things from a practical perspective, one of the things that made that difficult is as you, one of the ththings I say often is the longer a book takes, the longer it takes. So, which obviously, is kind of a obvious way of saying that, but it really is funny where if you can write a book quickly, if you can write a book, like you might write a book in 3 months, let's say, very quick, then there's only so much room for stuff to go wrong. And if you can write it, and if the draft process stretches out to 6 months, then you have a lot more room for something to have gone wrong. You to get sick, you to get injured, a family member to die, so the life happens, right? Like just stuff happens. Life happens. Sometimes it's good stuff, but the point is it doesn't get the book written. And that there was a lot that was going on. In addition to that, we were already busy. And then of course there's a lot, this adds a whole layer. So that made it difficult to get the book done, which then meant, I had to hit deadlines. So for instance, I released a beta draft of this that was really an alpha draft. So it was really this was a much rougher first draft than most drafts I send out. Usually, most of the drafts I send out to my readers are very readable. They're not quite publishable, but they're close. This one was not. This one did not have a. I just had to get the book out. I had to get they had to have words to read. So this one had the relationship between Omega and Isla really kept being inconsistent, and what Shirax was doing didn't make any sense, and the Varric's attitude toward what was going on shifted from scene to scene, and so on and so forth. Because I was writing it little bits at a time, stretched out over a long period. So that was really the thing that I struggled with the most. Now, as a result of that, then the actual thing I struggled with writing with the most was the relationship between Isla and Omega. Because, of course, I had their backstory determined before I started writing, but then you have to actually write the scenes, right? So you got to write the scenes. And as I was doing it, because it was stretched out over so long and there was a lot in between it, and I couldn't get into the flow and all that. Therefore, the scenes, in one scene, she really, really hated Omega, and in the next scene, he really, really hated her, but she was fine. And the attitudes shifted unnaturally. So what I did was I went back and I rewrote every scene with Isla and Omega in it, all of them. So that was a lot of the book. I rewrote every single Isla and Omega line. That was tough. That was difficult. Yeah. So that was the thing I struggled with writing the most. They all got rewritten. So the version you have read has no relationship to the version I just described. Anyway, all right. Sorry about that. I have 3 close friends battling cancer. Yeah. So I actually, there was a year, I want to say 2015, where 2 of my closest friends died of cancer within a year. And that was, cancer sucks. So yeah, I know. Weird, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, one of them was one of my closest friends. One of them was a real friend, but not one of my closest, but yeah, but 2 real friends. Yeah. So anyway, that's a little bit of a bummer, but that is the truth. That is the answer to that question. Sorry it took me so long. There's a lot there. All right. Where do the Denis fall in the Fiend ranking system? That is assuming they are actually Fiends. And here's the answer to that question. They are actually Fiends, and they are class 2. So that's the designation of the Fiends. A class 1 Fiend, as we kind of see in Reaper, right, is a class 1 Fiend has difficulty entering an iteration as stable as Fathom. So you can do it when you get the Mad King and all of them together to invade, but one on their own couldn't do it. So that is something that it's a class 2 Fiend that's nearby this iteration, and they occasionally come in, right? So that's what the Denis are. So there you go. That's the answer to that question. Yeah. And yeah. And so class 2 is big. Class 2 is a big deal. We talk a lot about class 1 Fiends because of Asylum. And class 2 is a big deal. One of the things that allows them to enter more easily than other Fiends, and what allowed them to be defeated by the heroes, is they are class 2 Fiends, but they're really, most of their power comes from spreading. Their power comes from the creating minions and then turning and then devouring people. And so the idea would be they would come into the universe and then spread their minions everywhere and become really strong, and then eventually take over the universe and become a class 1 Fiend, right? So that's the idea behind the Denis. But they didn't get there, and so because the Last Horizon defeated them very early, they didn't get very strong. Relative, I mean, eating stars, but. You mentioned before that you considered doing the pilot book 3 instead of the night. So how would things have played out differently? Oh yeah. So that's yeah. So that is definitely an example of how things would have played out differently, because like I said, I intended Ryan's book to be book 5 and then for Ryan to die, but book 3 was too early for Ryan to die because Ryan is the best, and I didn't want to write the rest of the series without Ryan. So because of that, I didn't want a mutiny. So I was like, okay, well, I can't get rid of Ryan, and I don't want to because he's super fun to write. So that probably, if in book 5, Ryan would have died, but now he won't, or maybe he will. Who knows? But I'm not following that original plan. So there you go. Will cursed rabbit summoning magic mostly involve throwing yandere bunny girls at people? Sam included this question in the selected questions. Somebody asked me about yandere bunny girls, and Sam said, That's the question for you. And he was absolutely right. The answer is yes, it will. That is exclusively what Varric can do now. He can summon yandere bunny girls and bestow them on people. If you don't know what that is, too bad. At one point during the later chapters, Will uses the phrase. No, I'm just kidding. I will explain it. So I will explain it as well as I can. I can't really explain it here because it's not a brief explanation. But the idea is that Yandere, very simply, is an archetype of anime girl where she is insane but obsessed with you. So it's like an insane stalker. And so in this case, it would be a bunny girl, so like a girl with bunny ears who is insanely obsessed with you and stalking you and maybe murdering the people around you. So yeah, that's what he's going to do. He's going to curse you with bunny magic. Yep, 100%.
I genuinely did not know what that was.
Oh, I knew you didn't know. I knew you didn't know. I knew that you included it, and that you knew that I would know, and I did know. All right. At one point during the later chapters, Will uses the phrase "baka, baka." Well, at one point during the later chapters, Will uses the phrase "rang like a gong." Is that a typo? And he meant rang like a bell.
I'm stepping in right here because I included this question for a reason.
All right.
I take beta notes, and what I do is I read through on a Word document, and then I highlight the section I have notes about, and then I put what my note is so I can remember later. I highlighted that section in all caps. I said, "Ring like a bell, you coward." And then he didn't do it. So I tried, friends.
That is exactly what he wrote. And I would just like to say that if Sam was a real Chad, he wouldn't be taking beta notes. He'd be making alpha notes. All right. Can you explain what the Galactic Union president's name when unscrambled is? I will let chat do that because I know a lot of people have figured this out. I knew you would. I also thought that may have been too deep of a cut to include in the bloopers. It probably was, but I still did it. And Ryan B is correct. He is the first person to type it into the chat. It is Sheev Palpatine. Emperor Palpatine's first name is Sheev, Sheev. So Talapin Veshe, what I did when I was writing the first book is I needed an Emperor Palpatine substitute for Omega's backstory. So I just took Sheev Palpatine and I scrambled the letters up until I came up with something that sounded like a name. And then I put it in, and then I really enjoyed that joke. So I brought it back in book 4, and made it a blooper. So there it is. That is the truth. It has been in there since book 1. Palpatine's first name is Sheev. I know most people don't know that, but it is true. All right. Did you expect Isla's character to be so disliked, or was she supposed to come across as more sympathetic to the reader? Sam said we had that question submitted several times, which is very funny to me because Isla's name is only a small amount off of Alan's name from Traveler's Gate. And I used to get this question all the time with Alan because there are elements of Alan's character that are sympathetic. And so that people are like, well, I hate to tell you this, but I just don't like Alan at all. He is a villain. He is the antagonist of the book and one of the major antagonists of the series. So the fact that he has sympathetic qualities, okay. Yeah, they're good. All right. And the same thing with Isla. Isla is an antagonist in this book. She is not a protagonist. She is an obstacle that the heroes must overcome. So the fact that she has some sympathetic qualities doesn't necessarily mean that I want you to go, oh, Isla's misunderstood. Not necessarily. She is working against our people. She is on the other side of the board. She is an antagonist. So it is funny because, so that's the people dislike Isla. I like Alan. I like Isla. I don't like Alan. I like Alan. Alan is terrible. Why don't people like Isla? Yeah. So this is what I'm talking about. So this is So this is whether you like or don't like Isla and whether you like or don't like Alan is not critical to their characters. There are some characters that you really need to like for them to work, right? But in these characters I'm writing, they don't necessarily need to be liked to be enjoyed as part of the narrative. I went to see Superman last night, which I really, really liked. And my favorite character in Superman was Lex Luthor. He is great. And the actor playing him did such a fantastic job of his expressions. He is being played like an absolute super genius madman. And I am like, that is exactly how I want Lex Luthor to be played. I enjoyed every time he was on screen. He was fantastic. But I didn't like him. And so a lot of people kind of feel like, obviously, he's Lex Luthor. Of course I didn't like him. Was I supposed to? And a lot of people go, well, I think you wanted me to like Isla, but I hated her so much. I just wanted her to die and lose. Okay, fine. She's the bad guy. And then other people are like, oh man, I was sympathetic for Isla. I liked her. She was really cool. I wanted to see her get saved. Okay, cool. She's not in this situation of her own volition, but she's also like 100 years old. So she's responsible for her own actions. So how the reader responds to the character in this particular case is not that important. All right. Best hateable antagonist. Yeah. Yeah, I really was. This was one where I'm like, if you liked her, great. If you didn't like her, that works too. You wanted to see her beaten? Well, good news. All right.
You got to ask the question in chat. Please tell us about the Sage equivalent in Fathom.
Please tell us about the Sage equivalent in Fathom. Sure, we'll do. Archmage. How would Isla with Hallowed Divide stack up against Yeren? No, Fidel, I'll give you a better answer. So the Sage equivalent in Fathom is indeed Archmage. It is so the idea of sages is that they can use their intent, they can use their authority, they can use their willpower to influence, to gain authority, to gain significance, to gain and make changes to the iteration, right? And so that's why they can command things that will then happen within the scope of their authority in the iteration, right? Like so that's the idea. It is Archmage. It is pronounced Archmage. The fact that Travis keeps saying Archmage really saddens me, because now I should have to say Archmage, because I've said for so long that however Travis says it is, I'm going to say it. But that's not a made up name. So he said it the way he said it, but I say it the way I say it. And now we've got beef. And yep. So now I'm having a tower defense, and I'm setting up my towers, and he's sending goblins at my turret. And then when he breaks it open and drags me out to the streets, he will get to say it however he wants. But yeah, so it's Archmage, dang it. Anyway, so yeah, Archmages are the equivalent of sages, but they do work differently in Fathom than they do in Cradle. Because in Cradle, the idea of what you're doing with the magic system is you are making yourself so powerful that you can then exert weight on the iteration. And in Fathom, the way you do it is you are borrowing basically the authority of the Aether. The Aether has the greatest authority in the iteration. And so you're effectively borrowing some of that. And your specialty as an Archmage is kind of like your little mini icon. And so within that, you can do cool things, right? So that's sort of the idea of Archmages. How would Isla with Hallowed Divide stack up against Yeren? Yeren now? Poorly. That fight would not last long. How would Isla with Hallowed Divide stack up against Yeren over the course of the Cradle series? Very well. For the most part, in Cradle, Yeren is within, like, Isla would just split her in half. Like, there's no, she's got a Zenith device. She's got her own superpowers. She's got, she just annihilates Yeren for most of the series. Yeah. Is Shirax now part Omega, or is his influence completely gone? Was it actually the Zenith devices themselves that bound them to the contract of sleeping and rarely awakening, or was anyone else involved? Like the Eldari Pact is supposed to protect fate. So I have an actual timeline of this. I have timeline of the Zenith era and the whatever I called the previous era, which is like the primordial era or some stupid thing like that. I don't know. It's whatever dumb thing I came up with. Dumb past will. I named them some kind of eras. You probably aren't going to hear the era names until I make better ones. But so I know I know the whole history of the world, and one of those involves the purpose of the Zenith devices, which were created over so the Zenith era, they were created. The thing that split the previous era from the Zenith era was the creation of the Zenith devices. So then the Zenith era is when they were active. It's when they were doing things. It's not really when they were created exactly. So everybody thinks that, but that's not really true. But initially, the Zenith devices weren't really conscious. So so Horizon was an AI. Horizon was originally an AI. Now she's not really, but she was before. And a lot of them, they were guided by basic actual computers. But they, over the course of being created with magic and then being used, they developed their own AI and their own personalities and souls, basically, that then reflected how they were used. So the fact that they have spotty memories of the Zenith era and the fact that they keep sleeping and don't want to cooperate with each other and all that stuff, a lot of these things are functions of their personality. They don't get along because they were competing when they were active. And then some of it is a built-in safety thing. So that is, there's we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. We'll get into it. We'll get into it. It'll be in the books. Is Varric ever going to overcome his sins against Cheese? It is Cheese that sinned against Varric, and it is Cheese that must first apologize. But as we all know, Cheese is stubborn. And so Cheese will never be the first to admit that it's wrong, but neither will Varric. And so Varric will just, this is probably going to be a stalemate. This relationship will be hard to heal. Heroes in stories like yours can't get stronger unless they go through trials. I have a hard time inflicting pain on my characters because I like them so much. How can I turn off my desire to protect them like my children and inflict upon them the trials that will make them great? That was a fun question. I enjoyed reading that. That was a fun question. I like that one. That was a good pick. All right. So effectively the question here is, this person, whoever's writing this, has a hard time inflicting pain on their characters because you like the characters. How do I stop doing that so that I can put them through conflict so that the characters can grow and become great characters? That's a good question, because what makes a story is conflict, right? If there's no conflict, you don't have any story. So this is one of the reasons why bad Superman stories exist, or why people think they don't like Superman, because they perceive Superman as being so much stronger than his opponents or than his struggles, that there is no conflict, right? He's always morally correct. He's always physically strong enough to win anything. So there's no interesting story because there's no conflict. And that's almost never true in actual Superman stories. So it's pretty funny when people have that opinion to me. But it is always, they stack him up against something that theoretically can defeat Superman, right? There's that. But then the actual answer to the question is, I don't feel the same way about characters as you do. I have never had trouble inflicting pain on my characters. Certainly not when I like them. Honestly, when I like them, I kind of want them to suffer more, because then I get to use them more. And that is that's yeah. So I want my characters to go through trials and suffering. So it's funny to me sometimes when people assume that, every once in a while you get this bitter comment that's like, Will obviously likes this character way too much because they're getting all the good things, and this other character's not getting the bad things. Or like, Will obviously likes Yaren more than Lyndon because Yaren is winning the tournament, or whatever. And it's like, dude, these are not real people. these are constructs to tell an interesting story. So I am not rewarding them based on their favor with me. Like, that's they're not experiencing anything. They're characters. So that's always very funny to me, because I'm like, I don't think of characters that way. I think of characters as entertaining functions of a story. This is how you make a story entertaining. You make people that are going through something. So it is. I've never had trouble with that. The one thing I do have trouble with, though, sometimes, is I don't necessarily ramp the conflict up to the degree that I could. I could ramp the stakes up higher. I could really twist the knife. I could really make it not just they want to win, but they really, really need to win because all this stuff is happening. You know, there are moments where I can get to the heights of, wow, you pretty much couldn't turn the screws anymore on this character. But there a lot of times I don't. And I see a lot of, I could probably get better at that. I could probably get better at ramping the conflict up on my characters more. As for how do you turn off your desire to protect them like children, they're not real people. They are there. The real people are your readers. And so the people you are trying to protect and give the good experience to are the readers, not the characters. It's also funny that well, they're real to you, right? So that's what's funny is I like my characters. I really do. I enjoy them. I like them as people. I get very excited about them. I get passionate about them, just like any nerd. But I feel a lot differently about characters I read versus characters I write. So there are some things I'm very nitpicky and specific about with other people's characters, that with my characters, I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. So, well, yeah, who cares? I don't know. So when there are things like, oh no, that's not who that character would not do that. We remember that about his backstory, or that character has red hair. He's got to keep having red hair. That's how the character looks. Or you pronounce his character's name that way, and that character is like this. And when it's my character, I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. Their physical appearance, like I did describe it, but it's not really that important who the character is. So if you want to change it in your fanfic, I don't, whatever. So yeah, so it's funny because I'm like, I know why the character is. Anyway, it's funny. All right. Let's see. Does Varric have any siblings? Good question. Will any high-level technology or AI slowly turn into aether tech once it enters Fathom? Ooh, that's a good question. The answer is no, however. No with an asterisk. So no, the technology itself will not slowly become aether tech. Like if you brought iPhone into the Fathom universe, it wouldn't become an aether tech iPhone. But what it could do is gain mystic properties from its interaction with the aether. So this would be something like an enchanted iPhone versus aether tech, right? What's the difference from a practical perspective? Not much. It just has to do with what aether tech is and how it functions. So the actual to you, it's like you get a magic iPhone. So that might happen. But what it might do is if you came into Fathom and you were the creator of the iPhone or an engineer who designs iPhones, then you might come into the Fathom universe and you might become an aether technician, and you might find that yourself magically inspired to create iPhones that are way better than they have any right to be, and you're making phones that can call across the galaxy with no signal, right? So that is the kind of thing that might happen if you went into Fathom. All righty then. Let's see. Was Benry surviving an Invincible reference? No. So a couple things there. For one thing, it was not a reference specifically to Invincible. It was a reference to a lot of characters that have this kind of like backup clone thing. Actually, if anything, it was a specific reference to the the D&D exploit you can do with the spell clone. So that's what I thought people were going to say. A lot of people said duplicate and Invincible, and I was like, no, man, it's clone. It's clone from D&D. So it's yeah. So one of the things you can do with clone in D&D is you can create a clone that can cast clone, and so you use wish to cast the clone, and then the clone has clone, and so then now you have an infinite like stack of clones that then resurrect you, right? So that's the idea. It's a rules exploit. But that's and then Rick and Morty. I understand that with Project Phoenix and all that. Yeah, I this is a common trope, but I'm going specifically. It was a reference to the clone spell. I wanted him to do something that the clone spell from D&D could do because obviously he's the clone spell guy. But the other thing is people bring up Invincible a lot. I'm not a big Invincible fan. I've read the comics and I've seen the show, and I just am not that. I'm not. Last 2 episodes of season 3 were fire. They were awesome. That was really, really cool. But I am just not that. And Viltrumites in general are cool. I just don't like Invincible that much. I think it's not that great of a story. Just not that great. Not my favorite. Not my favorite thing. So if you're in Invincible, great. No problem. Again, last couple episodes of season 3 were great. There are parts of the comics that are great. Yeah. But, not my favorite. Have you tried any fun novelty Oreo flavors lately? What was it? The Selena Gomez one and the Post Malone one. Oh yeah, the chocolate. So the chocolate pretzel or chocolate. Okay, so I had the Selena Gomez ones and the Post Malone ones, and okay. All right, wait a second. All right, so first of all, Infinite Pool. What you told me last night? Other than League of Legends, there's nothing I enjoy more than Invincible and Boruto. Yeah, all right. There's too much bait for that one. And then not a big fan. I've just consumed every form of media of it. Yeah, man, that's me in a nutshell, dude. There's a lot of things that I can't. They were making fun of me for that Superman, where I'm like, I don't read that many comics. I'm not that up on comics themselves, or I'm not. And then then I made a reference to a Golden Age Jimmy Olsen comic, and they were like, what the heck is this? Nobody knows this. And I was like, yeah, look, I know. I like reading about this stuff. Anyway, so it's not my favorite thing, but that doesn't mean I didn't read it or watch it. Right. So that's good. I also didn't say it was terrible. I just said it was my favorite thing. Anyway, but the fun novelty Oreo flavors is the Selena Gomez one was like kind of cinnamon, and it was pretty good. The Post Malone one I thought was great. Some people didn't like it. I thought the Post Malone was really good. It was like swirls of cookie butter and Nutella or something. I don't know. And then what was the other one? The chocolate covered pretzel. I like chocolate covered pretzel one a lot. I didn't think I was going to, but I did. So.
What was the Oreo thing someone sent us internationally like a month ago?
Michelle.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. What did she?
She sent us like the fins, and she sent us a bunch of trees.
Yes. So, well, Michelle sent us. Michelle, you said, right? Those yeah. Okay. Sent us like a box of like candies that we can't easily get in the US, which was a lot of fun. It was really cool. We really enjoyed like trying them. But her favorite were the Tim Tams, and I don't like Tim Tams. I've had Tim Tams before. I'm just not a Tim Tam fan. Sam liked them. I didn't like them, but I really liked. They had little like Oreo thin wafers, and those were great. I couldn't get enough of those. I had way too many of those. All right, right down. Wait, let me see one more question. You don't read all the comics. No one reads all the comics. Everybody talks like they read all the comics. You can't read all the comics. There are too many comics. The stories don't make any sense. Limited run comics are so much better.
So this is why we made fun of him, because he says all the time how he doesn't read comics. And then he has all of these deep cut comic references all the time. Anyway, it's very funny. Well, hello everyone. Sam is kind of here. There's
Hello.
Sam.
The new Absolute DC lines are really, really, really good though. Those are great. No
I
crap on
will.
that. This
I
is really
never
good.
read comics except for all the comics I read, except for those.
We were watching the Fantastic Four trailer, and he was breaking it down scene by scene while simultaneously telling me he does not read many comics. And I was like, "You're a filthy, filthy liar."
It's
Anyway.
the same time, if you ever hear him say, I didn't actually read that much this year, and it's because he hasn't been keeping track.
Yeah.
And then when he does update, he's like, oh no, I've been reading a lot.
Yeah, he
And
has.
it's like, yeah, always,
So
forever.
somebody on Reddit commented on my post about this live stream and said, "Hey, you need to juggle for me." And I said I would try. I cannot juggle. However, my dad can juggle, so give it up for dad. Yay! Way to go, Dad.
I think now you've had everyone in our family visit live streams multiple times, but that's the first
Well, yeah,
time
you
Dad's
gotta-
really been
bait 'em
involved in
into it.
something.
Hey to everybody that was saying hey to us. Hey Remixed. Hey everybody else.
Hello, hello.
So we just wanted to pop in and give in some Kickstarter updates. That's what
Yeah.
we're talking about first, right?
So yes, so
Yeah.
animatic updates next week. We are shipping out our shipping partner will be shipping out the envelopes for everyone Jade and up. So if you yeah, which is the $100 tier is Jade. So if you are backed at that level or higher, you'll be getting posters, art prints. If it's higher, you may be getting a physical copy of the script, posters. So we actually have we got a video of all of the people who signed the poster who are
And
signing
then-
it. But this is the example of the script you're going to get, just less colorful.
So what I thought was really cool is everybody who backed at that tier is going to get this script, this exact script without all the post-it notes. And what we've been doing is as we've been watching the animatic scenes be created, we've been following along the script and going in and taking notes. So instead of doing it on like a computer, we're doing it on the actual script book that
so
y'all are
fun.
getting. So I thought that was kind of fun. And Loriana, you are just the most dedicated Traveler's Gaper. I respect you so much. She
we love
says,
Traveler's Gate.
Traveler's Blade win all the time. I
Yeah.
push for it, I promise.
It's a good question. But no, one of the things that's really fun is we did a big review in the last week or two. They actually sent us like stitched and edited together the first essentially half of the animatic. Now more of those scenes have been done, but actually our next like big deadline is in mid-August. The two directors will have done essentially their portion of the project. Their animatic will be done. So they will have laid out all the scenes in like a storyboard and it'll be operating like an animatic. So after that, it will move into post-production for the last 2 to 3 months before we have our November 1st premiere. So post-production has...
And one of the things that we're going to be doing is I know it's not common knowledge what an animatic is. So
Mhm.
now that the pilot is out and rolling, we're going to kind of shift over the social media and YouTube channel to like really explaining more of what it is. But I have watched many animatics in my life just because I like seeing that type of stuff. I like seeing projects that got abandoned. I love the Deadpool animatic was one of the ones that I just fawned over and then it became a real movie. And this animatic is really sick. Like it's really high level. It's got great music. It's got some cool fighting. Yeah, I am just really excited. Rebecca, does it have bloopers?
Yes!
Yay!
It's
Anyway.
gonna have bloopers. Okay, the best part is there are two directors. There's Jay Oliva and there's Dave Hartman.
I
And
never said
Dave
animatics were my thing.
just loves doing bloopers. So before, when he joined the project a little bit late,
Mhm.
so he did not know about how we are known and Will is known for writing bloopers. He just writes them whenever he's doing
Bye,
animatics.
Kalyani.
He just does them for fun. And so he was like showing us scenes for the first time like over 6 months ago, and randomly a scene ended with like an arrow going through Lyndon's eye or something.
Yeah.
It was something silly like that. And then he was like, I just like to throw in little jokes to keep myself entertained. And we were like,
We were on
Dave,
the floor.
we need
just-
these.
He had never read the books until this, and he didn't get to the end of Unsold because he was reading his
Mhm.
parts, and he had no idea we did bloopers, and he did them himself, and we love him.
okay, but Justin asked, do you have any of the little blue plushies that we can see?
Boy, do I!
Thanks for setting us up.
Yay!
She's so cute.
She's great.
she's
and
so
she can-
cute.
She really stands up well.
So all of the
Yeah.
reward items
Yeah.
are being manufactured as we speak.
Yeah.
So we've got little blue plushes. We have, which one are you showing on next? Sam's getting ready to be our beautiful model. But why male models?
Also,
So
this is
here's
my
our backpack.
my lemon and Omega shirt.
Yep,
But this
available
is
on the merch
Lemon's
store now.
backpack. That takes up basically my whole back.
Yeah, it's huge. It can store a lot. My dad was really excited to see how much it stored, and like as soon as we got it, was just stuffing it full of rolls of paper towels, and then was like, "Look how much it can hold." He was really excited. It was fun. And then we've got that.
And then the big reveal.
The big reveal.
So the
Turn-
biggest headache of all of this was the custom marbles.
Yeah,
that
we thought it
are-
was going to be the easiest one.
Everybody offers custom marbles. A lot of people do it. They're very expensive because they all have to be made by hand. So I've tried to take good pictures and videos of the marble, and it's hard to get to show up. So I'm going to see if...
Yeah, I don't know how well that's going to...
Yeah,
Can we
that's
do it
the
over
problem.
here?
Try it. Give it a little spin.
That's not working?
No, back up. Oh, that's a little better.
Okay, wait. No, it's not doing it.
That's a little better.
That's a little better.
There you go. Spin it a little bit. Spin it a little bit.
I'm afraid.
Nice.
Anyway, so they're all a little bit different. But it's been really great working with a company called the Merch Guild, who works with a lot of Kickstarters, and they've helped do this process to get it looking like a white flame and a blue marble. So we worked with multiple companies, saw so many samples, and so a bunch of them look different. But what we love is everyone is a little bit different. So the flame is a little different. So we're ordering quite a bit of these to send out to you all. We're really excited.
Joseph, I've already adopted you, and you didn't even know it. So,
oh my gosh, are we adopting someone?
No, but the marbles are really exciting because they were very, very frustrating, and we went through a lot of iterations of them, no pun intended. And then now we're really excited about it. It's a real marble, and it is everyone is handmade, everyone.
But the plush was so exciting because the little blue plushie, we got quotes from a couple companies. There was one we liked the most, who had great schedule and good pricing. We got a sample, we loved it, had no notes. It was just like the easiest, smoothest process.
Let's talk
to
about the
lock
books,
in.
and then we'll move on back.
Okay, great. So the other project, our Cradle 7 through 9 special editions, are being printed as we speak. So we are further behind than we were on our last Kickstarter because, as Will mentioned earlier, when our cousin got sick and all of our schedules were delayed and everything else that had happened, Will was working less, and therefore when he was working, he was writing. So we just really delayed getting the signature pages. So we waited around for several months for the signature pages to get done. But now they're there. The printer is going. So hopefully we're looking at you receiving your books around this fall. We should be getting them and shipping them out. So late fall,
I saw a bunch of people
winter.
ask if they could buy the backpacks or Little Blue or the marbles. We have not decided that yet. That is something that is on our mind.
I will say though, what we've ordered now is enough to fulfill the Kickstarter. So that's what we have. So that's what we've got going.
All right, thanks everybody.
Goodbye.
See you soon. Bye.
Sorry for the audio mishap. I tested for 20
so
minutes
stressful.
earlier and it didn't work. It was so beautiful and then it didn't work live.
She really did test. And then what's also funny is not only did she test, we're using the same setup we've used before. So it's like, why would something go wrong? Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? Your IT guy failed you. I know, man. We can't get any good help around here, man. We don't know any professionals. That's the problem. So one of the funny things, I know he showed you the plushie, but we actually saw this scene in the animatic Little Blue's introduction scene today for the first time. So I got to see the little case and then the Little Blue like turning around, running around. It was really cool. Yeah. So he's just doing, this was just the scene that we saw today. So yeah, it was cool. It was a neat little. It was cool. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. So the design shows up really well, even in the animatic. Yeah, it was cool. All right. The universe hates you today. It's true. Did you appease the tech spirit? No, I didn't. I didn't do enough of my rituals. I should have said the words of the Omnissiah. All right. The POV of the Last Horizon series is first person, but Varric is speaking to a specific audience. That was a good catch. It was a good catch, whoever asked this. The POV of the Last Horizon series is first person, but Varric is speaking to a specific audience. Right. There are multiple ways to write a first person POV, and one of them is point of view, and one of them is you're writing as though you are a person speaking to someone. Some of it is you're a person just speaking to a hypothetical reader, right? In this case, he is talking to someone, recounting the events of the series after they happened. Nope, that is correct. That is how the series is being written. I don't, maybe it'll be significant who he's talking to, maybe not. Who knows? Who knows what it'll be? But that is how I'm writing it. You are correct. How do you come up with fantastical names? I've loved every single one of the names you come up with. Thank you. Let me see. Oh, Livinesh. Livinesh. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I recognize the name. How do you come up with fantastical names? I've loved every single one of the names you come up with. Thank you for saying that, by the way. How do I do it? Time. So this is what's funny. People ask me a lot of times how to come up with names. Do even you love the name Liren? Okay, so here's what's funny about the name Liren for Lyndon Urin's kid. Here is what's funny about the name Liren. I loved it. And the reason I loved it is because it is kind of a dorky thing for them to do. And I think that suits them. I thought it was a nice way to balance out the tone of the final book. You end on a decision that they made that was kind of dorky, but a little, it was like, oh, okay, it's kind of endearing in a dorky in an endearing way. But it's like, you think they're going to come up with a really awesome name for their kid? No. Who are they going to name it after? Right? They're not going to name it after Ethan. Ethan's right there. Right? So, like, what are they going to do with this thing? Not going to name it after his dad. So, yeah, you're certainly not going to name him Tim. But that was so I thought that was, I liked it. And in the first word, you know who he is. You know who he is. You got it. I said I was reading the final scene before I was even finished with Waybound. I wrote this. I was like, look, I wrote this epilogue scene. I don't know if I'm going to use it, but, and they were like, and my family was like, well, let's read it. Let them read it to us. Read it to us. And I said, Liren, and my mom went, oh, and I was like, okay, all right, well, I got to keep that. So that was, all right. So that was, yeah, so that's how I kept it. So I think it works great. Some people don't like it because it's aesthetically not as much fun, not as pleasing as many of the names I come up with. I agree with you. That's not what I did. Went a different process with that one. I was like, what is a dorky, endearing thing that my beloved main characters might have done to their son? However, how do I come up with names? That's the real question. Ethan would have loved it if they named it after him. The big thing I do is I just try. That sounds stupid, but I just come up with a bunch of stuff over and over and over and over. The tough part is there's a balance you have to strike, because you do want cool names. You do want names that really that ring, that sound cool. Especially when I love it when I get to name like titles and really cool stuff. So, Monarch of the Hungry Deep, right? Like, love that. So that's a lot of fun, but those are easy to come up with. Like you can come up with a million of those. The harder ones are when you're naming characters and you just got to name them something. You just got to name them a thing. You just got to name them. And so you need a standard by which to name them. So one of the things I always do is I always come up with a naming convention, even if it's very simple, for each culture I name around. So obviously the Akura family is the obvious one, right? But then you have Sacred Valley. So I was obviously going with Chinese sort of inspired names. But one of the things I did to make it clear that I wasn't just using Chinese names is I added Egyptian influence. So there are one of the characters, his name is Derek, like Derek with a T, because that's Egyptian style. So they all have 3 names, and you do the family name first, and then usually there's an Egyptian middle or first name. And that was just to kind of give you the impression. So that was what I came up with for Sacred Valley. So then it's for an Elder Empire for Uzziah's people. They all have a Z somewhere. So that is so if you're a native to that continent, you have a Z in there. So that is yeah. Is Shira your favorite woman's name ever? Elder Empire and 2 Akura women have the name. Yeah. So the thing about Shira is that's one of those that, wait, did somebody name Shira in Elder Empire? It's just Shira in Elder Empire, right? It's just Shira. I don't think there's a Shira in Elder Empire. I don't think I would have done that, but maybe I did on accident. I don't know. But two people in Cradle had it. Yeah. One of the things I don't do enough is reuse names. Like first names gets reused in real life all the time. But anyway, so what I do is I really just try. I just run at it over and over and over again. I hate coming up with names because it takes so long. I have to keep forcing it. However, there is a balance, right? So number one, you go have a way to come up with names, and then you go until you have something that you like, something that sounds good. On the flip side, you eventually do have to settle on something, and readers will accept whatever if the character works. So almost anything will work if the character works. So here's an example you might know because people have mentioned Patrick Rothfuss already. Kvoth is the name of his main character. Kvoth. It's like Quoth, but with a V. okay, why? Right? Like that's why. Why did you do that? However, because people liked the character and people named and people therefore and then the character explains why it's called that way. What therefore it's justified in character, and then you get used to it. You just get used to it. And so it's like, okay, yeah, you know what? I get used to it. It's a unique name. It looks cool on the page. Readers will get used to anything. If I had called Ethan Bob, then people would be like, Will's actually brilliant because what he's doing is he has the most plain, simple name ever. And you'd get used to it. And then you'd be like, yes, his name is Bob. And therefore, that is why he doesn't have the personality of a Bob, but it's this duality, it's this dichotomy of Bob. And it's like, no, I wanted him to have a cooler name than that, but like that would have worked for the character. So I Thunderbolts, yeah, I did pick Bob because of Thunderbolts. But yeah, it was that's the idea, right? Like, so it's just your reader gets used to whatever, unless your name is egregiously bad. Like your name is just terrible. But that is unusual. Usually it's just, it's okay. There are several rules and there are several principles that I like to use. One of the main things is you don't want your names to be easily confused on the page. Some writers say you don't, if you use one character with their name starts with a certain letter, you don't use that letter again. I think that's not practical if you're writing series with more than 26 characters, right? So that's not really very practical. But it is practical to not go like, for instance, have your main characters named Murphy and Mouse and Michael, and then you continue introducing further characters with M names. That is impractical, right? And you kind of write yourself in a corner, and then it's hard for the reader to kind of like, wait, your eyes bounce off. So anyway, those are Jim Butcher reference. And I was ragging on him because the Dresden Files is one of my favorite series. I love that series so much. But that is one of those things where sometimes there's just a lot of M names in it. That's it. All right. We now know that Fathom's World Spirit has been effing around for a long time. Is this the hardest it has ever found out? The question was actually written effing around is how it was. It's F. And so I assume that in the original that was not it, and that has been censored for my repetition online. So yes. Fathom's World Spirit has been messing around for a long time. Is this the hardest it has ever found out? Probably, probably the second hardest since the Zenith era. There's a lot of stuff that happened with the Zenith devices where Fathom definitely found out. But in this case, probably the first time in a while. After the events of the pilot, do light casters still work anywhere? This wasn't reaffirmed in this book, so I got to make sure. That's a good question. Alec asked this. Alec wanted to know if light casters, because we didn't say the light casters work anywhere in this book. So do they still work anywhere? I think this really reflects Varric's uncertainty. It says the universe is really in a state of flux right now. Nothing can be counted on, even light casters. I think that's probably the statement that the author was trying to make. And really, can we trust anything in this universe? Is anything reliable? Is anything reliable as the new Lightcaster 5 available now? All right. How long have you been planting the seeds for Greatest Mortal Mage? And did anyone catch on or speculate what the true identity of Solstice would be? I know it caught me totally off guard. All right. What a question. Okay. How long have you been planting the seeds for Greatest Mortal Mage? So yeah. So that has been, he's been saying that from the beginning. Like he's been saying he knows that. So he never talks like he's the best spellcaster in the galaxy. He's the best wizard in the galaxy because world spirits aren't wizards. People like giant magic using dragons aren't wizards. They are dragons, right? So those are the things where he's like specifying, like, look, I am not the most powerful magical entity in the galaxy. That is not close, right? So that he's been aware of that from the beginning. He's been saying that stuff. Did anybody speculate what Solstice would be? I don't think so. But I will tell you, one of the things that I was doing when I was planning out the events of this book, and I was planning out the conflict that Omega would go through, I was planning out Omega's villains, right? And I had two ideas for Solstice. So there were two things. And obviously, we now know which one I went with. So I'm going to tell you the other one. And my two ideas were, one, either a cabal of immortals, right? So what we did. Or the other one, just some guy. So that was the other one, is that I was just, it was just going to be some guy. It was just going to be some dude who was just the really, really good with a computer and had no supernatural powers at all. So what he did was just get really, basically just use, he got really rich and then kind of hired a bunch of people and that's it. So everybody thinks that everybody is in the Illuminati and it's really just some dude in a basement with a computer. So that was, I know. I really liked the idea. I really liked the idea that it's like, oh, who's running the world? Who's doing all the conspiracies? Who's doing all? Oh man, all the politicians are in this, and even the politicians are like, "Yes, I'm almost in the inner circle." And the inner circle is just some guy named Dave in his basement with a computer. So anyway, I just thought that. I know. I liked mine better, but it would have been cool. It would have been neat. It would have just been fun. That was one where I was like, this big villain that's giving him all this time, and they get through all the layers and layers and layers, and it finally ends up just being some dude. Anyway, not a question, but I feel sad for Lemon. I do too, but this is really, as someone else pointed out earlier, the greatest of heroes only grow with conflict and suffering. And as we all know, Lemon is destined for greater things. Omega could never have tied her down forever because her adventures have not ended and maybe will never end. Will we ever find out the relative timeline between Cradle and Fathom, or are they so independent that it has no relevance to either? That's a good question. A lot of people asking about that in the pilot, in the mega thread on the Reddit and on Discord. So a lot of people were asking about the relative timeline between Cradle and Fathom. Some people are very, very convinced they have figured out the timeline. Other people are very, very convinced that that it can't possibly be that timeline because that doesn't make sense because the times don't sync up. And the first thing I would say is as established in Cradle, the timelines of the different iterations don't exactly sync up perfectly. So that's deliberate. That's something that has been inconsistent. That's something that each iteration is consistent within itself. But just because it took 2 years in this timeline in this world doesn't mean it's going to be 2 years in this world. It could. Now, it is not like you would see in some other universes where it'd be like, yeah, in this world it's 2 years, and in this other world it's a gajillion billion, and then or Narnia where it's like, yes, we've lived our entire lives, and then we come back and no time's passed at all. We're not doing any of that. Because the worlds do need to interact. So it's stuff like just because it's 2 years doesn't mean it's not 3 over here. Just because it's 5 years over here doesn't mean it's not 6 over here, right? Like it's not that big of a difference. I kind of did it kind of like territories. One of the things territories do in Traveler's Gate is they have different timelines, which is what makes them good for travel. But what they don't really get into in the series, but is true, is they drift over time relative to one another. So eventually they all tend toward the major world that's not a territory, the unknown world, the central iteration they're all in, has a central timeline, and some of them move faster and some of them move slower. But over time, they would drift closer to the present. And so like over long enough time spans, they'll switch. But anyway, that's irrelevant. It's just kind of a cool little time mechanic thing. Yeah. So you will be given the tools to figure out the relative timeline between Cradle and Fathom. I'm not going to tell you now, but you will be able to figure that out. How's Urias doing? Not the staff, because the staff is toast, but how is the world spirit inside holding up? The world spirit inside has been dead from before the series began. It's a dead world spirit that was made into it has been made into a staff, and it's now the staff's broken. So poorly. Some readers have likened the ending of the pilot to the ending of The Empire Strikes Back. Do you think it's necessary for long series like this to have books with darker endings? Good question. Yo, it's Mr. White. Thanks, Merc304. Favorite author, love this book. I'm glad you did. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Merc. Appreciate it. Do you think it's necessary in long series to have books with darker endings? Necessary, no. So first of all, when The Empire Strikes Back had that ending, it is as book 2 of a trilogy, right? So the traditional trilogy structure, in very brief overview, is in the first book, they figure out something's going on and they have a minor victory against the villains. In the second book, they try to tackle the real villains, but then they get a defeat at the end. And then in book 3, they are going up against the real villains, and then of course they win at the end, right? So that's generally speaking how trilogies work. That's just how they often tend to be structured. In that case, of course, the second book is going to have a darker ending because they lost. But I don't think that's necessary. There are trilogies that don't have that structure. There are trilogies that you can have the characters lose, but it's not that big a deal. You can have an ending where the characters don't get what they wanted, but it ends up being good for them in the long run, right? Like, so there's a lot of ways. There's it have to have a longer series, darker ending. No, right? No, it doesn't have to. What I was doing with this series is so the Last Horizon is more of obviously it's more episodic than Cradle. It's more for it's less about the journey of I'm going from A to Z, right? Like it's so Lyndon clearly set out. This is what Lyndon's going to do. This is what he's got to do to get there. He's been doing for heading to this from the beginning, right? Like so we had a very clear series plot line for Lyndon established in book 1, right? And The Last Horizon doesn't do that. It's more about them being in a starship on adventures, killing these big monsters, right? So it's a different kind of series. Because of that, I was like, what I wanted to do, actually, I wanted to do this in book 3, but I had to rearrange the series a bunch of times and just stuff happened. But I wanted to ramp up the stakes. So I wanted to ramp up the stakes of the series and kind of go, we didn't give you a series plot line in book 1. We kind of gave you we told you how the series was going to play out and who the bad guys were and all that. But we didn't give you a straight goal that you're going to be working to the whole time. And in this case, I was like, it's book 4. Let me kind of ramp the stakes up a little bit. And so because of that, I was like, if I'm going to ramp the stakes up a little bit, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to put the screws to my character. We're going to crank it up. So that was my thinking there. Do I think it's necessary in long series? Not always, but I do think it is a great tool you can use to control how readers respond to the series and what they are expecting from the next book. So that's what I would do. All right. If you stuck all your main characters in a bar, who is talking to whom? Who is starting a fight? And who is trying to kill whom? All your main characters into a bar. Okay, so first of all, we got to establish who my main characters are. So I'm assuming we mean Simon from Traveler's Gate, Calder and Shara from Elder Empire. Obviously, Varric would be the obvious one from Last Horizon. And then Cradle, I would guess Lyndon and Yaren, right? So let's say 6 people. Okay. It's okay. Infinite Pool says Ethan. So let's see. Ethan would be there regardless. He doesn't care if he's counted, whether you counted him or not. Ethan's there. Ethan was already in the bar. Ethan's the bartender. So Ethan is tending bar, and these other 6 people are in there. So here's the trouble. Shara wouldn't go in. Shara would just be like, "No, I am gonna leave. I have no interest in this." So you would kind of think like, who's she? She's gonna kill somebody. No, she won't have been here already. She's gone. She doesn't like anybody in there. She's out. So she's probably sleeping. Calder is talking to whoever he sees first, like whoever is the easiest target. So he's making friends, right? He's going in there. He's trying to find people. He's trying to make friends. That's what Calder is doing. So probably Calder is talking to Ethan, if I had to guess. But then let's see. We got Simon, who is there in the corner talking to no one. He is sitting in the corner. He is not socializing. He's doing the opposite of what Calder is. Simon accidentally throws a lady. That's a deep cut there, Jess. So then we have who do we have left? Calder and Shara. So Varric. Let's do Varric. Varric would be handling this. I think he would be observing, right? He'd be looking at everybody, he'd be trying to figure out what everybody's deal is and trying to like go, okay, who are these people? How does this place work? Where do they come from? They're coming from different worlds. I'm interested in that. So he'd be examining this and then he would approach it strategically, right? He would be trying to go, how do I get an advantage out of this? And then he would very quickly figure out that Lyndon and Yaren are there. And he'd be like, how do I not get killed by Lyndon and Yaren? So that's the thing. The problem is there's not a fight because the only 2 people who can fight each other are Lyndon and Yaren, and they are not going to fight each other. So they don't need to. They've done that already. So they are everybody else is kind of like just sort of warily circling these 2. And are they going to talk to each other? No, not really. They're not that social. They are probably just going to get a drink and talk to Ethan. And then what Ethan's going to do is trick them to talking into talking to other people. So I think that's probably this is where the dynamic begins. So Ethan is going to trick them into talking to the other people. So for some reason, it's just going to be like them, and they're going to be like, yeah, I don't know these people, so we're just going to talk to you. And Ethan's like, really? You haven't met my new friend Calder? And he's just going to like hold up Calder, and Calder's going to be like, hi there. Calder's cool. He'll call, and then they're going to try not to talk to him, but it's too late. You're already caught in Ethan's plan, right? So then they're eventually going to meet everybody. And the most introverted of them is still going to be Simon. He's not going to want to do this. But yeah, so that's the real thing. Someone says I can vividly hear the whole thing in Travis's voice. That's really the problem with this scenario. It would be very difficult to hear in an audiobook. So yeah, there you go. The real victim of all this would be Shara, who, because Ethan is involved, they would somehow end up waking Shara up. That would happen, and she would be very annoyed because she didn't even enter the bar. But yeah, no fights. Yeah, that's true. If Ryan and Nathan were there, they would hit it off. Best of friends immediately. Ryan is like, this guy is the best. I completely trust him, and he probably does not have a checkered past at all. All right. How did you hack into all my devices and make them play the Doom soundtracks whenever Sola is in the scene? You know, as you saw earlier, my tech savvy is just on another level. And so what I did was I used all the code to hack into the mainframe, and I plugged straight into the source material of the nanites. And yes, I believe that answers your question. The real answer to this is I absolutely love the Doom remakes. They are great. 2016 Doom is fantastic. Doom Eternal is fantastic. Sam and I got halfway through playing Doom Dark Ages, which was also fantastic, but then I had to get back to work, so we didn't finish it. But really, really fun. Love Doom. Yeah.
Why don't you go in and say again some of the inspirations for the characters on the team, just because?
Okay, yeah. So the people did ask me that techno babble caused me actual pain. Good. What I was really trying to do was keep it in. What I would have preferred to do was keep it in like 80s hacker movie lingo, but I couldn't really do that off the top of my head. So all right. So Sam asked, let's actually go through some of the inspirations of the team, like some real inspirations. So the one with the least number of specific inspirations is Varric. So he is not really so much a reference to any particular character as he is. I wanted him to be a wizard in a starship, so I wanted him to be the most wizard in the most starship, right? So that's where Varric is. So there are some specific bits of his kit that are references to other things, like rabbit summoning. Obviously, is pulling rabbits out of a hat. So that kind of thing, right? So there's no, he's the least reference filled. He's mostly there because he's a wizard. Then we have Ryan, who's the most obvious reference, Power Ranger. He's a Power Ranger. That's who he is. He's also it was really funny because I had an idea. Dang it. I had an idea I was going to do, and then manga stole it from me. All right. So this anime is out now. So you guys might have heard of this, but it's Red Ranger in Another World. And the manga had just come out when I was planning Last Horizon, around that time. And so I had already had this idea for a Red Ranger character that was powered by the power of friendship. And then I read this manga that I'm like, I read it because it's like, it's Red Ranger getting isekai'd. Great. That's perfect for what I'm writing. And I read it, and they had a scene. This is a spoiler for the anime. Dang it. Oh, well, I'm going to spoil this anime. Sorry. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. 5. I'm going to spoil it. Turn off your audio for a second. If you care about Red Ranger in Another World, the anime. So you end up finding out that he is the Red Ranger, but he actually is also the Black Ranger because he was in such despair after losing his friends that his key that he used to summon his mech turned black. And so he's able to summon a Black Ranger mech that's powered by rage. And dang it, I was going to do that. I was going to do that with Ryan. I was going to do that exact thing. So I had to change it. Oh, sorry. You're back. You can turn it back on. Back, Dr. Pooh. Come back to me, Dr. Pooh. So anyway, somebody here is asking, wait. All right. Somebody just asked, We just asked a question I just saw that I was interested in.
Is it did Ryan feel friendship energy from Omega while he was sitting there?
Oh, that's a pretty good one. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, he did. So that was what I was originally going to do with Ryan. I ended up not doing that because the anime did it, but I was depressed. Then other references. So obviously, Sola is a mix of Doomslayer and Metroid, probably mostly Doomslayer. To be honest, that's mostly what I went with. Doom guy for the older school people like me. Then Shirax is the other one that's like specific reference, not really, but general reference to a lot of things. There's a lot of hyper competent commanders in sci-fi. That becomes this big trope. And so it's one of those things where I was like, yeah, I can think of a lot of characters who fit this archetype. So I really wanted to do just a hyper competent commander. And that was when I was like, okay, so when I was trying to figure out like what is the angle for Shirax, how do I make her entertaining? Goodbye, Burke. Thanks for coming in. So that was there it is. So somebody said, the pilot feels different than your other books. Do you feel that way? Did you write it differently, or did you? Everybody says that about every one of my books. So there's always everybody. There's always somebody saying that. Any one of my books, it's this one felt different from the others. Do you know why? And no, I don't, because how it felt to you is different than how it felt to me or to the other readers. So do I feel like it was different from other books? Not really. I feel like this is pretty in line for the other Last Horizon books, my opinion. So yeah, I don't think it's that much different. But people ask me every book, why does this feel different than the other books? I don't know. That's probably from your side. Anyway. All right. So then who am I missing? Omega is kind of the general. There's a couple of things for him. One of the ideas I had originally for The Last Horizon is that they were all coming from different iterations. They were all coming from different sci-fi iterations that were all mashed together. So they literally would be from different worlds. And so one of the things I thought was, she also has So Sola also, because she's got video game inspiration, that's where she get her pyre, because she just respawns, right? Like, so that is where that's from. That's a video game thing. And then obviously the leveling up the armor, clearly. Right. But so Omega is more from the idea from him is that he was going to be from a dystopian, like cyberpunk universe. And so that was when I was originally plotting this as they were going to come from different worlds. He was from a dystopian cyberpunk world. Now he's just from a dystopian cyberpunk planet. Right. So he therefore is a reference to that kind of genre. And then specifically to Alucard. He's a reference to Alucard. He obviously is a reference to Alucard. Lots of people caught that. Yep, that's who he is. And there was even a specific Alucard Helsing Abridged reference in this book. And that was, I was actually kind of surprised people caught that one, because I worked that in what I thought was pretty organically, but it got caught. So that was impressive. Then who am I missing? Mel, right. Well, Mel's pretty, that was pretty clear, right? Like Mel is a reference to mad scientists in general, but specifically Dr. Wily and Dr. Light from Mega Man. So that was, yeah, mostly Dr. Wily. The things with the red eyes, like the Nova bots, that's Sniper Joe from Mega Man. Obviously, we all know that, right? Sniper Joe, yeah, clearly. Yeah. So that's the references to the team. And then Horizon isn't a specific reference to anything. It's just the magic self-aware spaceship. And here's a funny story about Horizon though. Horizon is she going to make VTubers like in Mega Man Zero? All right, look, I just respect you, non-serotonin. I don't know. I respect you, non-zero, because for referencing Mega Man Zero, because nobody played Mega Man Zero, and I feel like you and I are probably the only ones. All right. Horizon was originally going to be a guy. Horizon was a male spaceship AI. And the reason I did that is because I was trying to go, let me go opposite of Cortana, right? Like, so you obviously think of Siri, you think of Cortana. I'm going to do opposite of that. With these hands, we will destroy. With these hands, we will rebuild. Oh, we got the Proto Man reference in there, man. Nice. Yeah, we're getting some. So Krolodin is quoting lyrics from the Proto Men, which is a band who wrote 2 albums and no more than 2 about Mega Man, about Dr. Light and Dr. Wily from Mega Man. Yeah. So fun fact, I listened to the Proto Men albums on loop while writing Traveler's Gate, just jamming it. I was writing that when I was writing the end of House of Blades, I was just listening to Proto Men Volume 2, just over. Anyway, that was the joke. Act 3 is coming eventually. Yeah, they said that for a long time. I think they're probably giving up on that, but it'd be really cool if it did. I'd love it. Anyway, Horizon, originally a man. I was trying to do the opposite of Cortana. I was trying to do the opposite of all these AI you would expect to be kind of feminine, right? And so he was this, really arrogant, proud dragon man. It was kind of like Orthos, kind of like a mix between Orthos and Shirax. And I had two problems with it. One was I couldn't find a unique voice for him. And then two was in book one, they really only collect the male team members. Like, so that you have Ryan and Omega are two of the first people he interacts with. And so then even though you do grab Sola, then it's Varric, Ryan, Omega, Sola, and Horizon, who is in this point a man. And so it's 4 men and a woman. And while you do pick up the other 2 women in the next book, they're not in book one. So it's like, it looks like you're having an all male crew, right? Like basically. So it's just, the vibe was a little off. And one of the things I do when I'm making characters, when I'm making any set of characters, I try to go half and half. Like I try to just go, half of these are men, half of these are women. Just sort of just rule of thumb, right? So I was trying to go, let me get some women in here earlier. And then I was like, let me try Horizon as a woman with it. And I couldn't find the male voice either. He was a little too similar to Orthos, a little too, just didn't quite work. So I tried to flip him and I was like, what if I not only flipped him to a woman, but I also then just really ramped up his personality. So he was already going to be the proud, I don't like to share. I want to go on a quest, but then I'm definitely going to go on a quest. And then of course you had the angle, and I was trying to find this personality angle. And then I thought, what a cool angle would be is the AI is always really good at everything. And I wrote the male version like that and I didn't like it. So one of the things I was going to do for him, if I did keep him, was I was going to make him less competent. I was going to make him, AIs are always really good at everything. And he was going to be like super proud and posturing, but then he was going to, also kind of suck sometimes. And so then I kept that for the female version of Horizon. And so when I switched over, it worked a lot better. I added a lot to her personality and her design was cooler. And she liked better. Yeah. Made her like a cat. That's right. It's a very cat-like personality. So it was fun. Why did you make Varric dislike cheese? What did he ever do to you? Well, as I established earlier, these are real people and I am completely in charge of what happens to them. And when they displease me, I give them attributes that will make them suffer. So what Varric did was Varric has not shown me enough respect because I control his entire universe. And so I gave him a dislike of cheese so that therefore in the next book, he will use his magic to improve my life and to benefit me in return. And then I'll get him to like cheese again. See, this is how this works. I make deals. Who's your favorite Last Horizon character to write? All right. There are 2 answers to this. There are two ways to interpret this question, I suppose. And the answer to both is Ryan. So one way to interpret this question is, what is the easiest Last Horizon question to the character to write? Somebody asked me that the other day, and I said, I don't know, probably Horizon. Horizon's fun to write. Maybe Omega. Omega's pretty easy to write. And then I went, oh, well, I'm not counting Ryan, of course, because he is the easiest. And then I thought, and then the other question is like, from my experience writing him, who's the most fun? Ryan. And there's a question of, okay, well, as I'm writing the characters, who's like the most fun, like who's the personality I like the best? Also Ryan. So, yep. Pretty much, that's pretty much the answer to the question. People used to ask me who my favorite one to write in Cradle was. And okay, Fraser, I'm going to answer your question in a second because that's hilarious. But people used to ask me how my favorite character to write in Cradle was. And that's hard because I've written so many Cradle books that I really do like all the characters. Like I like all the characters I write. When writing Threshold was super fun because I got to write all the different kinds of characters and characters I really enjoyed writing. But writing Dross and Athan is always easy and they're funny and I just can do whatever I want with those characters. So it's those two because they're fun. They're just funny. They're just enjoyable. I like them. They're fun. Yeah, there you go. Similar with Ryan. Ryan's personality is so clear that you can kind of do whatever with his character and it works. And it's just fun. I could write him doing anything. It's just fun. Can combat arts work with different weapons? Yes. A spear or a staff combat art, for example. Absolutely. 100% they can. Yep. So combat arts in this universe are really like, they're really more like spells than they are like the sacred arts from Cradle. They don't level you up. You might think they do because Ryan is leveled up. But that's just Ryan being the coolest. So this is a the people the members of the Last Horizon are exceptions. They're not the rule. And then even Isla, who learns a combat art, she also has a Zenith device. So again, we're operating at a much higher level than usual. Combat arts really are they're just ritualized combat forms, but they require certain mentalities or qualities to use. And so then you can, instead of using a spear to stab a guy, you can use a spear to stab a building, right? Like, so that's but then they have certain strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes you have to charge up or you have to do all these different things. So that's how combat arts work. They're accelerated abilities. They do not necessarily improve your stats, right, so to speak. Yeah. So a lot of combat artists have to use other means to enhance themselves. So that's one of the reasons why, Isla's good at it because she's a cyborg, and Shirax is good at it because she's built different, and Ryan is good at it because he can absorb ambient friendship and is a Visiri, who are naturally good at combat arts because they have a pool of energy inside them that they can use for blasts and flight, right? So it's like, yeah, so they're good at, so when you have that and a combat art, you're really, really good at poking holes in buildings.
You said you were going to answer.
I know. I'm going to answer quite a favorite question. All right. Will, how did Rand light his pipe? I can only assume you and Sanderson are besties, given how many books you both write, and you're also Insta friends. That's funny. So how did Rand light his pipe? All right, let me give you the context of this question for anybody who didn't read Wheel of Time. At the end of Wheel of Time, okay, there's one particular really intense spoiler, but the idea is Rand at the end of the series lights a pipe, but not using the magic that he's used for the entire rest of the series. He uses something else. So I think so Robert Jordan wrote that epilogue before he died, and Brandon Sanderson was obligated to include it. And so therefore I think that was something that would have been set up better had Robert Jordan been able to write the rest of the book. And Brandon Sanderson, I think, not only did the best job possible, I think he did an amazing job filling in for an author who was no longer around to give feedback. How in the world would you do that? That sounds like an impossible job. Jim Butcher said years ago that if he had been offered that, he would have said, heck no. So I'm going, hey, man, that was a very tough job that Brandon Sanderson had. But as a result, anybody but Robert Jordan writing that is going to miss some things. And so what I think is that was a tease that would have been set up better if he had written the book. And now it's just a tease for nothing because who knew what he meant? Nobody. How did Rand really write the pipe? The power of friendship. All right. How did you feel? That's the next question.
Yeah, Rebecca included that, not me.
How did you feel when you learned that Brandon Sanderson followed you on Instagram? How did I feel when I learned that? I felt happy for Sam because he's the one who runs my Instagram account. So I was like, yeah, man, whoever runs my Instagram account and whoever runs Brandon Sanderson's Instagram account are friends now. So that's how I felt.
I mean,
yeah.
He followed because of a reel that took a really long time to edit.
That is true.
And so that's what felt good. So
yeah, that's a good point. Oh, here's a fun question. Which external IP magic system, like Wheel of Time weaving, investiture, and so forth, would work best as a way iteration? Ooh, interesting. I think about this a lot, as you would imagine. And so there are a few answers to this. One of the answers is anything that has some give to it, but has clear rules to the magic system. So Nen would work great. The problem is that I, as a writer, would not be great at writing Nen because one of the reasons why Nen works so well in Hunter x Hunter is in Hunter x Hunter, this Nen is like basically their version of Chi, but it allows you to create your own special power, and you create your own special power using a highly elaborate series of rules. So I love it. It's one of my favorite magic systems of all time, but it works well because the author explains every single thing in excruciating detail. So you not only know what everybody's power is, you know how they created it and how it can be used. The people in Hunter x Hunter are way smarter than they have any right to be. They have thought through every little thing, and I can't write that way. There's no way. I'm not writing 500 geniuses all doing their 7D chess. Yeah. Anyway, somebody just said something about Murim cultivation. I already wrote that series. Yeah. So that's my first thought was Nen. What else would work best as a way iteration? I'm trying to think of magic systems off the top of my head. Oh, here's one. No, that's too obscure. Okay, I'm going to say it. Half mad mechanisms from the Isekai Choose Your Own Adventure. No one? Anybody? No, probably not. Yeah. So that one, that's what I thought. And that was that one would be cool. Let me see. It's Chain of Isekai, I think is what it's called, something like that. That's it's really just a collection of magic systems. I read that a while ago and I went, oh, this is cool magic systems. And it's effectively like a prototype version of Aethertech. So it's like a systematized Aethertech. That was really cool. What's your favorite series? So, okay, Bleach. Someone asked Bleach. Here's the thing about Bleach. I thought of Bleach, and that's when I was thinking about it a minute ago. And I went, I love Bleach. Bleach is great. Bleach's magic system is not really so much a magic system as it is just, it does whatever. So if there were a system attached to it, it would work great as a way iteration magic system. That would be fantastic. I would love that. It'd be very, very cool. I mean, Zanpakuto on their own, just what a great magic system. But it doesn't actually work like a system, because sometimes they can do things like, my sword becomes longer. And other times they're like, I have bound you to fate conceptually, and now you are destined to die in the manner that I have predicted for you. Okay, those are this guy's sword just got longer. So I don't know. Anyway, that's tough. What would be your favorite power to write if you could do anything? Favorite power to write or favorite power to have? Because I have two different answers. So favorite power to write is probably, I don't know. It's something that has enough flexibility to it, but isn't like a do anything power. So if you just say magic, where they're just like, you can just do magic. Well, that's lame. Now, if I was picking powers for myself, I mean, I'd probably just pick magic. But the picking for a character, it's like, it wants to be something that's cool, but it has some flexibility, right? So I think it's something like time manipulation, right? Something cool, something flashy, something that nobody else has. But at the same time, it's also something that doesn't necessarily win all the fights forever. So you would have to have some like stamina limitations on time magic. Like, for instance, you can only stop time for 10 seconds. And if anybody else has the ability to stop time, they can move in your time stopped, and then maybe they kill you. Anyway, I've really gotten off topic here. I have no idea what the topic was, but I'm off of it. Has anyone ever ascended from Fathom? If so, what is required for it to happen? And why haven't any of our crew ascended? Okay. So back to Cradle. They call it Cradle because that's where they keep the infants in terms of the infant potential Abaddon, right? Because the entire point of Cradle is you cultivate and you get yourself more powerful, and therefore you become closer to the way and you ascend, right? Most iterations don't have a system that works that way. They don't have something that levels you up. That's the reason why Cradle is the Cradle. So that is where that's the role of that. That's the purpose of it, right? So other people do ascend from other iterations. People have ascended from Fathom. People can ascend from Fathom. That can happen, but it's not easy, and it's not. It's not easy, and it's not necessarily a baked-in part of the magic system, right? So in order for one of our crew to ascend, what they would have to do is effectively do a ritual like Varix, but for ascension, right? So that's what they would have to do. So there are beings that can do that. That's a thing that can happen, but it's just not common, right? So there you go. Does the Cradle have a world spirit, and is it part of Solstice? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Cradle has a world spirit. It's part of Solstice. And weirdly enough, Cradle's world spirit has long, luscious blonde hair. It's just weird. It's odd. That doesn't, most of the population of Cradle isn't blonde. So I don't know why it looks like that. It's one of the big mysteries of the cosmos. Someone asked, I meant online novels in text format. What?
That was when you were answering what you really like to read.
Did I answer that? What question are they clarifying? I don't know.
If you were isekai into a Warcraft world, what guild would you train?
If you're isekai in the Warcraft universe, do you think you would train to be a certain class? Oh, I like that. I like that answer. That depends if I can train to be a mage. If I can train to be a mage, that one, please. It has teleportation. It has elemental magic. It has the ability to conjure food and water. What in the world? Why would you pick anything else? If I get a chance to train magic, I am going to learn magic. And so my assumption is I get to study with the Kirin Tor. I'm there. I'm like we're in. Yeah, that's the answer. I'm not going to do something like being a demon hunter. Are you kidding me? First of all, I'm not an elf, and then second of all, I'm not ritually blinding myself. And then something like a warrior or a rogue, like I could train to do that here, and I'm not going to. So, yeah, it's I don't like that. No, not going to do that.
Okay.
Maybe a peon, maybe a wisp. I could die in a night elf forest and then work for them and harvest lumber. That's actually probably what I would do. I would probably die in a night elf forest so they could reanimate me as a wisp and I could get lumber.
Do you want to talk about what you're writing right now, or do you want to keep taking questions?
Let me take one more question. Password, yeah, I do not know what your original question was. You said I meant online novels in text format published by indie authors and platforms like Royal Road. Something like a practical guide to evil or worm. I don't know what your original question was. I assume it was, do you have any favorites of those, or are you reading any right now? I have read both a practical guide to evil and worm. Favorite web serial. Got it. So favorite, I don't know. That's favorite. Favorite's hard. Favorite's hard to pick because it feels wrong not to say worm, because worm is probably the best one. But worm is like many web serials. It goes on so long. So there's a lot of arcs that are just very, very long. But worm is so creative, and worm's endbringers are great. They're some of the best kaiju, stuff. I was like, when I was writing the Dread Gods, I was like, dang, I wish these were as cool as the endbringers, but they're not. So yeah, it's just some of the best superpowers ever written. Big fan of worm. So it's hard not to say worm. I wanted to say something else just because you said worm. But Shadow Slave is really good. I read Shadow Slave, but I kind of dropped it around like 13 or 1400 chapters. I intend to go back and catch up, but I just haven't yet. So somebody in there was a subreddit, the Shadow Slave subreddit responded when I said I really like Shadow Slave, and they made a post about it. And then they were talking about how, well, I don't know how he liked it because it fell off around like chapter 2000 or something. I'm like, I enjoyed the book. I don't know what you always say. So that was, yeah. So that's my other things. Most of what I read are web novels, but they're not English web novels. What I'm reading right now is Tribulation of the Myriad Realms, which is a Chinese novel, and I really enjoy it. So most of what I read are web novels, but not the ones you're talking about. So Sam asked me, do you want to talk about what you are writing now? Okay. So when we were finishing, it's a secret. When we were finishing up the pilot, there was, like I said earlier, there's a lot going on. So I was we weren't sure when I was going to be able to finish writing. We weren't sure how much work I was going to be able to do and when. And we were thinking, okay, can you move on to The Commander, which is going to be the next book in The Last Horizon? And we weren't sure if I was going to be able to do that. So that was one of those things where I'm like, is this going to be something where I have to but we didn't, I want to work. I want to do some stuff. So we started there's a lot of other things to do. So we started working on something else. And I am going to work on so I decided to work on a standalone. This is my first standalone. It's not necessarily going to just be one book, but it's one of those things where what I'm trying to do is write it so that if you read it as one book, you're not disappointed if there is no book two, right? It's one of those things that I'm like, I'm going to write it. And if you want a second book, I'll write a second book. If you don't, I'll keep writing something else, right? So it was something where I was like, okay, let me try this, right? I'm going to try something as a one-off and see how people enjoy it. And I have also never written a lit RPG. So effectively what I did was plotted out a standalone, right? Like this, it's got room for multiple books, but the lit RPG where in an original world where I decided to go, let me just set up a world that works like a video game. And so there are some game elements to it. There are some things that work like you would expect an RPG to. And it's kind of just generally gamier than what I normally write. Now, it is still a fantasy universe. It is still, it's not an actual video game, right? Like they're not playing an actual game. It's a world that works that way. But I also was able to, this is something I enjoyed. This is mostly for me, right? Like, so this is I got to write it as an isekai. So the character comes from a different world, not our world, but a different world to this world that works like a lit RPG. Oh no, Will does lit RPG math. See, the thing, Jeremiah, is that I got to design the system, so I get to decide how much math is involved. So, but anyway, Yeah, so there are numbers. There's a game style. There's a game style system. Is the standalone series an iteration in the way, or is totally separate from other work? Should I answer that question? I think I should. It's answered in the prologues. I think I should. All right. So, so this is an answer in chapter 1. All right. So this character gets isekai to this universe. And the way I wrote the first chapter so far, I might go back and rewrite it, right? Like, so this is just the current version of it. Is I wrote it so that it's a kind of a standard like meeting with a heavenly being that takes you after your death, and the isekai, like every other isekai anime ever. Which isekai, by the way, if you don't know what that is just it's being taken to another world. So one of the standards is it's a very common anime genre, and one of the standards is you get killed in your original world, and then you are then taken by a god or a goddess, and you are put in, and then you're kind of placed, instead of dying, you died in your original world, now you're placed into a fantasy world, right? So this guy gets incarnated as the isekai style to try and help this world, and he has a task, and he has the stuff he's given. And if you don't know Cradle and the Abaddon in the way, that's it. It's just a standard isekai opening. But if you do, he doesn't introduce himself, but he's a member of the Abaddon doing this to help mitigate the collapse of the multiverse and try to come up with an alternate solution to the Reapers, because he doesn't want to use the Reaper division. So if you have read Cradle, you know what's going on, because it's an alternative to the Reaper division. It's not the Reaper division. It's not Athan. Let me just be clear right now.
Is it any of the Cradle characters? Say that explicitly.
It is no one from books 1 through 12 of Cradle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, yeah. So I did. So different guy. Yeah. So it's not. Yeah. So it's not a character who is from Cradle. It is not a character who is from the iteration Cradle. So yeah. So yeah, they didn't know that. So it's a character you met. It's not that big of a deal. It's just it is a character who shows up in Threshold. Yeah. So it's a character who shows up in Threshold. Right now, I might rewrite the scene. So this is, you don't need to hold me to this. But yeah, that's the idea. So anyway. So the idea is that these characters are now, so what the Abaddon are trying to do is they're taking random schmoes from random universes and they're throwing them into other universes to help stabilize them, right? Other universes that are on the brink, so to speak. So there you go. That's the idea. Wow, there are a lot of guesses so far. It's the rat face guy. It's the terrible ghost. It's Otep. That was my favorite. It's Otep now. It's not really. It's the it's the Titan guy. Yeah. So anyway, so those are my thoughts. And yeah, so that's what I'm working on. I'm working on a little RPG. I just started. It hasn't been that long. It's early in development. So again, I might change the opening scene, but that's the idea. That concept is going to stay. So there you go. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So that is that's where we're at. Wow, there were a lot of guesses. Okay, boy. Yeah. So yeah. So one of the things I had to do is I was working on this. I initially designed a lit RPG system that was I over-designed it. I did way too much work on it. And so I ended up trashing it because it was way too similar to what I did. Was I was basically like, what if it was a leveling up system where everything was part of the world, everything was it, and I just didn't, I way overcomplicated it. So the idea what was going to be, I'm not using this anymore, but what was going to be is they're going out into the world, and then there's some naturally occurring artifacts that you effectively go through dungeons to get. And then you can go into these dungeons and get these artifacts, and you can either use the artifacts like normal magic items, or you can absorb them, and then they become like an inherent like magic, like a stand from JoJo, right? Like, so they become a magic power with an external manifestation, right? Well, and the advantage of doing that is not only do you keep it with you, but also you can like stretch its limitations. It's like a living magic system thing. But the problem is, if you take it away, then the dungeon goes away. And you want the dungeon because the dungeon is a constant producer of resources. So it's like this like chess game you're kind of playing. So you want the power, but then once you get the power, how do you level it up? Well, you got to consume more artifacts, but the artifacts have to be compatible with the artifact you had. So if you have a sword, artifact, you have to then get more swords and feed it, and then that gets it, levels it up, right? So that was just, it was overly, it was too much. It was overly specific. Everybody would have to have a specific kind of artifact as their like thing, and I just, it didn't, and it wasn't video gamey enough. It was one of those things that I'm like, unless even though you had dungeons and you had relics and you had stuff, all this stuff, it's like, yeah, it's not video. That didn't feel like a video game, right? So yeah, so I'm working with a different system now. A different system. Is Earth considered part of the Willverse? No, I will be very explicit about that. Earth is not considered part of the Willverse, at least in the branch of the way that the Abaddon are aware of. So that is, yep, there it is. Then, can you do a stream where you come up with a magic system from scratch? Oh yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, I just finished the pilot and I'm so mad at you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Andrew. Yeah, yeah. So here's why Earth is not in the Willverse. By the way, one of the problems with having there's a big advantage to doing Earth as your setting. Either is like a post-apocalyptic Earth, like a system apocalypse sort of thing, or as just it's Earth, or as like an urban fantasy thing, or it's Earth, but gods are real, right? Whatever. Is you don't have to explain certain things. So I don't have to explain what Australia is. I don't have to explain who Zeus is. I don't have to explain what a cell phone is, right? So that is, you don't have to do all that. So you have shorthand, you get the people into the universe immediately. One of the most brilliant things that Dungeon Crawler Carl did is started on Earth and then almost immediately go into a game that was made using Earth culture and resources. Because you get to just have basically just a straight up game universe where you do anything, but it's all specifically made and designed around video games. So everything is very comprehensible to you as the reader. So that's the advantage. The disadvantage is if you are using Earth as a real setting, people have strong opinions on Earth. So there's a lot of times where you'll be like, yeah, this German guy does this thing. And somebody be like, German guys would never do that thing. And somebody else was like, oh, you think that about Germans, huh? And I'm like, no, I just had a German character doing this. I wasn't making a statement on Germany. This was just had a guy. This is a guy. So that is, I can just avoid that. And so I do. That's it. It was now the things that I say are not necessarily statements on real world places and people. I was like, I don't intend that. Go away. Yeah. Anyway, Rebecca, it's your turn.
And then we're gonna make some comments.
Final question, and then it is time for Rebecca and Sam. So thank you for being here. Thank you for reading the pilot. Thank you for tuning in to our prototype spoiler live stream. Thanks for sticking with us over our audio issues. And then let me see. Is it called The Way because you're the will? Yes, 100%. Will confirms he thinks Germans aren't good enough to include in his books. That's funny. Let's see.
Did you want to talk about how you really had fun seeing the reactions to the pilot?
Oh yeah, that's a good thing to talk about. All right. So I really enjoyed watching the reactions to the pilot. I always enjoy that. I always enjoy watching. One of my favorite things to do is in Discord. There's a channel that's tagged spoilers, right? So as you're reading through the book, you have to tag your reactions to certain chapters, and you tag spoilers. And I go, what I like about that is you get people's live reactions to specific parts of the book, and that's always really fun for me because obviously I wrote that book. And so I get to see, instead of just your general opinions at the end, which is usually what I get to see people's opinion as they're going through the book. And so it's like, chapter 5, why did you do that? Right. And it's fun. It's just fun. I really enjoy that. That's one of my favorite things to do. So I really had a lot of fun with the pilot this time because I was trying a lot of things. Obviously, I thought the ending of the pilot, for reasons that you understand, is the ending I thought was going to be a lot more controversial than it was. So people have different opinions on the book, of course, but the ending really, people liked the ending. So I was very pleased by that. And I was just glad people enjoyed the book, and it was fun. Book did really well. The book, people enjoyed it. Yeah, it was great. Screw you personally for little to no falling action and then a cliffhanger. When have I ever done lots of falling action? I don't do that. The action doesn't fall. It plummets. We plummet straight to the ground. Thanks everybody. It is Sam and Rebecca time. Sam and Rebecca, go. Woo!
Then you're saying goodnight.
Will's not leaving. Say that.
Hello. Will is not leaving. He's just going to come back in a second to say goodnight, and then he is leaving. We just wanted to come here because we've made a couple social media posts recently about Barnes & Noble and just the crazy awesome updates going on there. So
we
wanted
have
to come
been
chat
on a
with you about
journey
it.
to be in Barnes & Noble for 4 years. And it has been
Mhm.
partnering with Ingram Publishing. And in order to get into Barnes & Noble, they are not set up for small publishers to get in if you don't have a gigantic print run. Hello, somebody I don't know whose name it is, Shadow Saver.
No.
But it is very difficult to get in if you're a small publisher for very understandable reasons. Barnes & Noble would have to take a lot of risks. But we have had to work a process from the ground up for years. And then all of a sudden, about a month ago, a little over a month ago, because people were coming in and requesting Cradle books so much, we haven't been able to get a super direct answer. Now we are essentially in most Barnes and Nobles in America because they made a mass order of Cradle books, thousands and thousands of Cradle books, and people have been sending us pictures from all over the country with Cradle on the shelves. It is one of the coolest things that has happened to us in a long time. Me personally, it was awesome.
So we've been trying to get in bookstores for 4 years since I left my job at Disney to come work for Hidden Gnome. This is one of the things that I started off doing, and it's just been many years, and it has been a lot more complicated because, like you mentioned, this is way more set up for people who have already been working with traditional publishers. So it's been a long process, and so we're not sure what exactly led to this big step, but a lot of it has just been how awesome our fans are, and we've been trying to get people to hear us. Like, there's a huge audience. They love these books. And so the goal has been bookstores, and Barnes & Noble is the one where they kind of changed how they operate a couple of years ago, where they let their individual stores are empowered to buy books. So we did signings in Barnes & Noble, and when people worked at Barnes & Nobles and were fans, they could order our books. And so that's all happened over the last year. So anyway, it's just really exciting. We're really grateful for all of you because it's you all showing up to signings, buying books online, requesting books, and now
the
this
amount
is a
of
huge
people
win.
that have gone into Barnes and Nobles that I know already own the books and back to Kickstarters, and they're going in and still buying print books just to support us. That is so awesome. I could cry. I literally have cried about it. So it has just been really beautiful. You guys are the best. It's really just so awesome to walk into Barnes and Nobles and my brother's books are on the shelves.
Yeah.
And
so
he
indie bookstores and Books a Million in the future.
We're aiming at Books a Million.
But really, it is exciting because our whole goal with this is we know there's so many readers and fantasy fans who aren't looking on Amazon for ebooks and don't listen to audiobooks, and so we want to reach those people. We want to get them. We want to suck them into our fandom.
Yeah, it's been really cool. Tell your friends to go buy them. And if you see Waybound on the shelf, buy the later books.
Yeah, please go buy Waybound.
And somebody called me a Saints fan on there. I don't know. That is offensive. Go Falcons. Will, come back.
Let's not get him started on football.
Oh, we'll talk football. We're gonna do a football
thank
stream
you all.
next.
You guys are the best. Sorry for our tech problems. Goodbye.
We talking football? Yeah, now it's my turn. Yeah, here we go. Time to talk football. Oh, they're gonna get that ball right. They're gonna get it right in the hoop. They're gonna get it. They're gonna get it with their foot. I don't know anything. All right. Has Sam read 1776? Wait, 17776. 1777. Have you read it?
I have read
no. Okay. All right. No. Sam hasn't read any number. Let's see. All right. So I'll take a couple more questions and then I will sign off. Just a couple more quick questions, right? Because I popped back on.
Candy Queen just popped in.
All right, Candy Queen. Where's Candy Queen? Is Eldest Nye a fiend of chaos? No, actually. But close. So what Eldest Nye is Eldest Nye is an inhabitant of an iteration that was destroyed. Right. So because of that, they drifted in the void for a long time. Their piece of the world drifted in the void for a long time. And so they kept pieces of their energy system from that universe. But they also kind of were starting to get warped and corrupted and wrong. So they started to kind of twist. If that had kept up for long enough, they would have become fiends. But that didn't. So because the Valen found them and stitched them into a house. All right. I think Post Malone is better than Selena Gomez. I have no opinion on their music, but their Oreos, I do have a strong opinion. And I liked Post Malone a lot better. Post Malone was great. All right. Football 17776. That was real? That was a real title? Sci-fi, science fantasy multimedia story that is absolutely worth experiencing. Wow. Okay, I'll take your word for it. Oh, yeah. Okay, this was one of the questions I was going to ask earlier. Is all the major humanoid races of the galaxy are represented on the Last Horizon crew, except for Aethril. Why not? Well, it was really just because I didn't have a great idea for an Aethril character to join the crew. And so it was like, I was really going, for one thing, I specifically was like, I don't want it to be, we just have one of every species on the crew, because I was like, that's convenient, right? Like, so unless Horizon is specifically trying to collect the representative sample of the galaxy, there's no reason why that would happen. Because it's chosen through, a combat tournament, right? Like, and then rolls in a spaceship. So there's no reason why you would want one of each. So that was one thing. And so I was like, logically, I would have to make it happen. And then 2, it was like, okay, so I picked the first 6 that I had cool ideas for, and they weren't Aethril. So that's the reason. I won't say that there won't be in the future. Just saying that currently there is not. Would Athan be insta famous? Yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. He has all the clout. He really enjoys it. Let's see. We'll do a couple more. What do you think? What genre do you feel is missing from writing right now? What do you believe will be the next level of success, lit RPG level to break through? Next genres are always tough to predict. I don't think that's something that I think there's always, sometimes it's obvious, right? Sometimes it's like, well, this wave is going to hit, but other times it's like, I'm not sure. And it's not, I don't know if there's any particular, I think all it's going to do is split into more subgenres. So there are a lot of subgenres from other countries that are very popular that are not popular here or not popular here yet. So one of the things is solo leveling was really popular here, but the Korean version of isekai, the portal fantasy thing, is not that common here. So, but because portal fantasy was because solo leveling was so popular, I expect more of that portal fantasy type series to start making its way over here. And then, of course, you probably see more of it on Royal Road and that kind of thing. So that would be that's one of, but it's hard to predict genre things. What genre do I feel is missing from fantasy, at least right now? General normal fantasy, just vanilla epic fantasy. I don't see a lot of that. I feel like people are always trying to do, like me, are always trying to do like specific subgenres of fantasy. And I'm like, where was the last, just like one of the things I've said for a long time is the main character just setting out to defeat the Demon King, just like the hero going to defeat the Demon King. I was like, I just straight up, just a journey, gathering heroes and going to beat the King of the Demons. I haven't read that very much in my life, and yet everybody's like, we're playing on that. And I'm like, I've seen way more deconstructions of that than I've ever actually read. Yeah. So those are RPG Portal Dungeons is definitely coming. Yeah, that's definitely that's the thing. If I had to put my money on something, it'd be that, but I don't even know if that even counts as a bet because it's definitely coming. So yeah. Frieren did that, dude. Yeah, Frieren. Yes. I love Frieren so much. Will the Last Horizon books have any romance? Yes, but it's all going to be in the very last book. It's all going to be, they'll actually all 6, the first 6 are going to be action fantasy sci-fi books, but the 7th is just going to be a romance novel. It is going to be Horizon's journey to find love. Really no is the answer. That's not a significant romance element. It's not a big part of the series, so it won't be a major thing. All right. Let's see. One more. Let's do one more. I love Frieren. I also love Frieren. Frieren is an anime. What is the English title? It's not So No Frieren. What did they call it in English? Frieren Beyond Journey's End. I think that's right. Yeah. So Frieren, the anime, really, really good. Frieren is I'm going to talk about Frieren. That manga I really liked, but it's about the mage of the heroes party who beats the Demon King, and she's an elf and they're not. So what happens is they go on this journey to beat the Demon King, and then they age and die, and she doesn't because she's an elf. So the rest of the series is about her basically coming to terms with mortality and learning that, wait a second, back then, the hero I went on an adventure with was in love with me, and I was actually in love with him too. I just didn't know it because I'm emotionally immature, in spite of the fact of being 1,000 years old. And so it's just kind of this melancholy experience of the progression of time. And boy, it's awesome. And they really cranked the anime fights up. You're absolutely right. Whoever said that, yes, the anime goes way harder. The mage fights are super awesome. I really loved it. I thought I was the only one who's really going to love it. The manga came out. I was like, I feel like I'm the only one in the world who's going to like this, but I really, really like it. And then the anime came out and it was crazy, insanely popular. And I was like, well, dang, I was wrong. I thought it was just going to be me. I loved it. But anyway, Threshold 2 ever. I would love to write Threshold 2. I had a ton of fun writing Threshold 1. It was really, really fun. I got to write whatever I wanted. And I would love to do that again. But, you know, I'm going to write other stuff, right? Like, I don't want to just write Cradle Forever. So I'm going to do something. That was my code. You got to crack it. All right, one more question. Let's do it. I said one more a minute ago, but that wasn't, I talked about Freeran too much. So we'll do one more. What will the names of the books? What will the names of the books be after the Rolls of the Last Horizon are done? That's it. That's the series. The series is over. So after the you'll do the Rolls of the Last Horizon, and that's book seven. Book 7 will be the Starship. So that is the plan. Book 7 is the Starship. All right, I'll give you any amount of Nachtham's money to write it. Yeah. Your third one question in a row. Yeah, probably. Will you ever do a web serial? Probably not, because I don't write that way. I like going back and being able to edit. So like I said about this, I wrote this opening scene, which I do like, but I'm going to go back and tweak it later. And if I want to change the Abaddon to a different guy, I might do that. So, yeah. So I like having my options open until I have completed the book. So I probably won't ever write a web serial. I love reading web serials. I read probably mostly web serials, but it is not I just usually don't write that way. So there you go. All right, everybody. Goodbye. Thank you for joining me. Thanks again for reading the pilot. Thank you for sticking with me and asking me a bunch of cool questions. I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out, and go watch Freeran. All right. Goodbye.